What mold do you think I fit, by the way?
The enlightened centrist that doesn't really have a position or a strategy, but can easily attack everyone else to the left, and talks about how the right is the most important thing, but you spend most of your time attacking the left instead of attacking the right. If you say Trump is the biggest priority, but every time I tune into you, you're attacking the left.
I do, however, think that there should be some things that we shouldn't really compromise on. So like the trans issue, I think, is one thing where we need to like plant our flag. This is like a crisis in my mind. And so there's a certain like moral principle on particular issues that I think Democrats should be like very consistent on those issues. Krista, you seem to be making the point that they would have done better if they went out there and like made trans issues like one of the main talking points of the campaign.
No,
or whatever.
I didn't say one of the main talking points.
You're saying that they didn't talk about it enough. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And they would have. Okay. Do you think Kamala would have done better if she talked about it more?
Yes.
Okay, then what the fuck are you arguing with me about? So yes, I would like a Democratic candidate to strategically avoid certain topics. And then when they get elected, I know they're going to be way better on that topic than the Republican.
They lost the election. Hello. I just think that you need to stand up for what you believe in, and you need to write on that message. And I think they would have.
No, so do I. But I mean, listen, so do I. But I also acknowledge that like political strategy, you need to be like savvy at times, and you know, strategically avoid certain topics.
They lost the election, and you're talking about it like it's a winning strategy when they lost. That just doesn't make sense.
Believe me, I would love nothing more than to build a reliable coalition with you. I would like for you and me to be on the exact same team. I would like to form a political voting bloc with you. And though we have ideological differences, I would like to be united in our opposition to the Republican Party and united in our hope that things can get better if we move forward. I would love that more than anything.
I love it.
Unfortunately, I see a lot of leftists who spend 90% of their time shitting on Democrats. And then if you talk shit about them, they say, whoa, whoa, whoa.
But at the end of the day, we want the same policies for America. So no, okay. No, we don't want healthcare. No, okay. We're so different. Okay. All right. So there's nothing me and you could ever work together on.
And we can both generally like healthcare, but your system, like your sort of like envisioned solution to our problems is dramatically different than what I'm thinking about.
You don't have a solution, bro. You
agree to disagree on that one.
Anything. You have nothing.
Okay.
But, yeah, man. Yeah. It's nice talking to you. And I have critiques of Bernie too.
What are those critiques?
I mean, I think he's been weak on Israel. I think that
meaning what?
I think he shouldn't be afraid to use the word genocide, and I think he should have came out in favor of cutting aid sooner than he did.
Can I take a guess? Can I take a guess of like another reason he pissed you off? Well, how did you feel when he said that Israel had a right to exist and defend itself?
It doesn't bother me.
That doesn't bother you?
No.
I don't believe you.
Okay.
What else has he done that upset you?
Why would I need to lie about that?
I don't know. I'm being a bit of a prick there. Well, in your case, you've been in my chat active for many days. So I see what the things that you type. I'm not just like making stuff up.
Third day I've been in chat.
Yeah. And I've seen the stuff that you've been writing in chat, which is fine, but you fit a certain mold.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you don't?
Sure I do. Yeah.
Okay.
What mold do you think I fit, by the way?
The enlightened centrist that doesn't really have a position or a strategy, but can easily attack everyone else to the left, and talks about how the right is the most important thing, but you spend most of your time attacking the left instead of attacking the right. If you say Trump is the biggest priority, but every time I tune into you, you're attacking the left.
The truth is that this is more of like a proximity thing. But I think the reason why, first of all, I don't even think that's true. Like if you go back in my VODs for like the last like month and a half, I bet you anything, a majority of it is me talking about like Trump and the MAGA movement and Republicans, et cetera, et cetera. But the reason why I end up talking, why I end up talking a lot about lefties is because, to be quite honest with you, there are more lefties that disagree with me that are in my chat than MAGA. With like MAGA, there's like fucking 3 people. But with like lefties that disagree with me, there's sometimes like dozens in the chat at the same time. And so they end up getting my attention, and then that starts an exchange.
Sure.
And so there's all that. Yeah.
So do you think it's...
But you just said a moment ago that I fit a mold of an enlightened centrist that doesn't have any kind of strategy. What do you mean by doesn't have any kind of strategy?
Hold on. Do you think it's wise to base your political positions and agenda on the feedback is that you're getting in chat and like Twitter?
No.
Okay. Okay, good. What do I think
I don't know
that's what I've been wanting to know is what your specific strategy is. You said win elections. That's the only thing I've heard as a specific strategy, which is kind of vague and generalized.
Yeah. So my strategy for winning elections, when we're talking about like a whole of government approach in a holistic sense, when we're talking about winning political power at the national scale in Congress, we're talking about the importance of coalition building. We're talking about the importance of recognizing that we are a big tent party, and there is a lot of ideological diversity within that party, and recognizing that the solution or the most ideal candidate for one particular district over here, that we can't have like a universal strategy for how to elect candidates for like what specific like platform they should endorse. Like a strategy for how to elect a candidate in a blue plus 50 district is not going to look the same as a purple district in Arizona. And what I view from people that, I'll just say you guys, but I mean like more progressive lefties that have become like anti-democratic party, these kinds of things. You guys are very focused on like, okay, we need to get like, so we'll use the force the vote. Are you familiar with that movement when it popped up a few years ago?
Oh yeah, I really did not like that.
Okay, great. We agree on that. So like force the vote, I think was like a perfect example of the kind of purity.
That was like from the Jimmy Dore. I felt like that was a grifting, like that whole thing was just started on a grift from Jimmy Dore, to be honest. I don't feel like it was genuine, but it got a huge.
Well, there were definitely like big lefty voices like Breonna Joy Gray, and I don't know if Kyle Kalinske backed force the vote. Maybe he didn't. We talked about it.
Kind of on the fence about it a little bit, but yeah, he was kind of there too.
Yeah. So like, there's this. There was the logic that you force a vote on Medicare for all, knowing that it will fail, but then that'll give you a list of people that you're going to go out in like primary. That kind of strategy when it comes to national politics and coalition building and forming an effective bloc against that can like compete with MAGA and effectively stifle their hold on power, I think is wildly counterproductive. And that's kind of like the perfect example of what I'm talking about. So like my strategy when it comes to winning nationally is simply to be dynamic and pragmatic. That's all I'm saying. We can't have just a universal, like prototypical candidate that has to be this exact particular way in every single district. That is so wildly unrealistic to shoot for that as a goal.
I think that's a little bit too general to be a real strategy, but I don't disagree with you necessarily. But back to that force the vote thing real quick. I think the reason that was such a bad thing was because it was never genuine and it wasn't actually something that could work. Because at the end of the day, even if you forced the vote, they could still fake the vote and vote yes because they know it would be vetoed at the top. So they could still pretend to be supporting it, but not actually supporting it because at the end of the day, they knew that either the corporate Dems or it would get vetoed at the top, right? So you're not actually getting a genuine answer out of that force the vote thing. But we definitely do need some way to be able to hold politicians' feet to the fire. And I think the biggest problem in America right now is the super PACs and the campaign finance system. And I think until we do something about that, it's going to be very difficult because so many people can just grift and say they do one thing and then they can change when they get into office. We have.
Would you so like money in politics, right? Like you would agree that's a big problem. Like big money interests have it outsized.
I think it might be the biggest problem.
Yeah, maybe I might agree with you there. So like, so then I assume you would also agree that the judiciary is of enormous consequence in that struggle to address big money in politics. If we allow Republicans, for example, to pack the federal judiciary and the Supreme Court with judges and justices that will uphold these opinions that allow for enormous amounts of corporate money to be laundered into our political system, then I assume you agree that this is a really good reason to, for example, here's a good litmus test. Okay, of like here's the difference between.
I think it's our strategy of putting corporate Dems in power that has given us that outcome where we're at right now.
The Democrats have run on a
try a different strategy.
The Democrats have run on a policy platform of ending Citizens United for the last 3 election cycles. So that's
the thing. They can just lie. They can just lie because they're not being genuine when they say that this is their platform. You don't
think that
corporate money.
Hold on. You don't think that if we gave the Democrats a big enough majority to actually pass a constitutional amendment to take on Citizens United that they would actually do it?
Don't you need more than Congress? Don't you need isn't it like crazy like governors and everything that you need to get an amendment?
Yeah. It's the threshold is quite high. Much higher than just passing a piece of legislation.
But
hold on. I
don't think the current Democrats that we have, I think we only have maybe less than 10 or 15 Democrats that would
vote to pass Citizens United. Okay. I don't agree with that. You think there's only 15 Democrats in the entire Congress that would vote for a constitutional amendment to end Citizens United?
I think the easiest way to tell is who is taking corporate money right now.
Well, if you don't take, there's an argument to make that if you don't take, if you just eliminate like PAC spending altogether, if you eliminate like accepting PAC money altogether, like that might work in a particular district that's super blue or whatever, but maybe in a district that's more purple or like light red even, you're just putting yourself at an enormous disadvantage just money wise in the campaign. But hold on, I wanted to suss out something. Like I just wanted to ask, like here would be a good way of like I think illustrating the difference between you and me in terms of our approach to like how to engage with politics or in politics. If you lived in West Virginia and it was election time and you're given the option to vote for Joe Manchin or the Republican, do you vote in that election? Do you vote for Joe Manchin specifically?
You're saying if I was a blue voter in that state,
in a red state,
yeah,
a super red state,
I'm probably always going to vote for the lesser of two evils, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, we agree on that then. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no problem with damage control, and I think that's Bernie's position as well. It's why he supported Kamala and supported the Democratic candidates against, what a lot of leftists didn't think he should.
But how do you feel about that? Do you like the fact that he endorsed Hillary and Biden, just out of curiosity, and Kamala?
I think it sucks because once you link yourself to them, everyone says you agree with all their policies, but I think it was the strategic right thing to do.
Okay, then we agree on that.
Yeah, I'm not against voting for the lesser of. The thing is we're digging into a hole where the voting for the lesser of the two evils is just not going to get us anywhere at a certain point. I
don't know. I don't know what to do with that, because when you look at Biden, for example, like we elected Joe Biden and he, codified gay marriage into law, signed multiple bills that amounted to the largest investment in climate of any country in the history of mankind. He passed the largest, the most robust domestic stimulus package in modern history with the ARP. He capped drug prices for seniors on Medicare, which is enormous. That's a hugely big deal. He demonstrated. Yes, exactly. You say like, well, voting for the lesser of two evils gets us nowhere. It's like, well, we have childhood poverty for a fucking entire year because Joe Biden won the presidency. So like, I feel like it got us like some pretty good stuff, and certainly better than what Trump was offering.
Sure, but here's the problem: all of this stuff, if it doesn't actually lead to real change, it just is putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. You don't think
it was real change to cap drug prices for seniors?
It was real incremental change. But if we do if we do a bunch of small changes and it doesn't actually stop climate change from happening, then you kind of like lost the cause there, right?
I don't know what you mean.
Okay, well, if you take a bunch of kids out of childhood poverty, but 60% of the country is still living in poverty, paycheck to paycheck, you still have
the poverty level in this country. Hold on.
We need a revolutionary type of change in this country.
When you say revolutionary, what do you mean?
Like complete reform of our government, starting with the campaign finance system, so we can actually have politicians that do what they say they're going to do and don't get into office and change their positions.
How do you want to do that?
I think it's going to take mass protests, just like the civil rights movement. It has to be on a massive scale because the times call for massive change. So we need massive protests. It needs to be public pressure on the government. Because think about the civil rights movement. When the civil rights movement passed, it was not popular in most of the country. Most of the country did not agree with it, but there was enough people making enough noise that it pressured the government to make changes that it wouldn't normally have made.
Okay, so what we need now. Okay, so your proposed solution starts with mass protests, and then it leads to government reforms, right?
Yeah, starting with the campaign finance system. I think that's got to be the linchpin that allows us to actually get genuine politicians into place.
So if you want to overturn Citizens United, you need to either basically restructure the Supreme. Yeah, you need to either pack the court or pass a constitutional amendment.
Yep.
What's your plan for that?
Public pressure. I think packing the court is a matter of getting a president in there that's just willing to do it. So that's number one. I think the constitutional amendment is a much larger, bigger step, and I don't have like a quick answer for that. But I think if we're able to change the dynamics of the Supreme Court, that should get us the foot in the door that we need to make bigger changes from there.
Yeah, in order to accomplish these,
None of this stuff is easy. I am first one to admit that this is not easy stuff, but that's where we're at right now.
yeah. So like none of these things, just as you said, are. I mean, these are very, very difficult things, hard to imagine in the modern climate, but times change, and it wasn't that long ago that constitutional amendments were possible, and we could do like big sweeping stuff. There's a lot of obstacles.
Things can change quickly.
Sure, they can. That's absolutely right. My idea of how to get closer to these things is through coalition building. Believe me, I would love nothing more than to build a reliable coalition with you. I would like for you and me to be on the exact same team in opposition
I agree.
to the Republican Party.
I'm not here to.
I would like to form
anything.
I would like to form a political voting bloc with you. And though we have ideological differences, I would like to be united in our opposition to the Republican Party and united in our hope that things can get better if we move forward. I would love that more than anything.
I love it.
I would love nothing less than to spend none of my time criticizing leftists. Unfortunately, I see a lot of leftists who spend 90% of their time shitting on Democrats. And then if you talk shit about them, they say, whoa, 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 you're punching left. You shouldn't do that. Which,
yeah, I agree. I think that's a problem. I think that the left tends to eat itself alive. I don't agree with that strategy. I think we got to be building bridges, as they say in chat. But I also understand the frustration, because the point where we're at right now, we are like beyond the horizon. We are at a point where we don't even know if we're going to have another like fair, real election. We know I can almost guarantee Trump is going for another term, and who knows what's going to happen after that. But so I understand the frustration, because it's like a lot of people feel like we're kind of past the point of like all this pragmatism, and they feel like a lot of Democrats are controlled opposition, which I agree with. I think a lot of them are controlled by their interests that pay their campaign.
So what interest
to get elected?
What interest was Biden, like big money corporate interest, was Biden adhering to when he lent unprecedented institutional support to unions?
I don't fault him for that, but I fault him for saying I would veto universal health care if it ever touched my desk. So I'm not talking about the good things he did, and I appreciate the good things he did. I just
was Biden controlled opposition?
Oh yeah, I think Biden is. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you agree that he was the most progressive in practice? He was the most progressive president policy wise in the modern era, basically.
Sure, but the problem is
that's controlled opposition.
Low. It's just, you got to give him a carrot, right? You got to give him something. You got to throw him a bone, right? So unfortunately, I just don't think what he did was enough. If what he did was enough, then Kamala saying I would have the exact same policies, she would have won. She didn't win. So obviously, what he did was not convincing. It did not. Enough people in the United States did not feel like their lives changed for the better, so they voted him out. And it's going to keep swinging all over the place until someone gets in there like an FDR and shakes things up for the better, not like Trump.
You understand that? Hold on. You understand that FDR had obscenely large majorities in Congress, right? Like,
sure.
Like fucking insane. He had like a 75% majority in the House when he was president. And you understand that presidents have that kind of mandate, those kinds of majorities, they are able to do so much more than a president who gets 50 senators.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. We need.
I don't think that's a fair standard to say that Biden didn't go.
Congress.
Don't you think it's kind of disingenuous to say that you're going to fault Biden for not doing FDR New Deal type policies when he had a totally different Congress to work with?
I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think that.
Wait, hold on.
Let's said no matter what.
Hold on. You're saying that the congressional makeup it's not relevant to this discussion?
No, I didn't say that. I said it's not it's not important to his decision on whether or not he would veto healthcare. I think that was his personal position that he's had forever. I don't think it had to. And this brings me to Bernie's strategy. And I don't, obviously everyone disagrees with me and whatever, but the point of his strategy, the populism that you don't like, is to get the right ideas out there and push as hard as you can in that direction, so that when we get to the point of compromise, it's going to be somewhere in the middle, right? So if you start out compromising, the actual compromise that occurs is going to be further to the right. So you push as far left as you can with your platform and your ideas. And then when the compromise happens, which Bernie is very aware of, that he's not going to get, he was very aware that he didn't have the numbers in Congress to actually pass universal health care, but you still have to talk about it and push the idea so that when we get to the point of compromise, we're at least hopefully as close to that as we can get. If you start out saying, I give up, what do you think you're going to get?
You're talking about the ratchet effect, which I think is a pretty kind of like crude sort of way to look at politics. But if it were as simple as we need a, sounds like what you're saying is like uniformly, the strategy needs to be all over the country, in every district, in every state, all over the country. It's just all you have to do is just run more to the left. And then we'll number one, we'll win more elections. And number two, the ratchet effects will start going like in a leftward trajectory. But
I don't focus on policies that are broadly popular in the public, and the policies that he's pushing are broadly popular in the public.
Okay. The question I want to ask you is, if it was as simple as everybody just needs to run to the left, just run far to the left, and that'll fix all the problems. If that were true,
I was talking specifically about the presidential campaign. Obviously, if we're talking about purple districts and stuff like that, I agree with you. The strategy is going to be a little bit different. But I think something like universal health care, I think that does work everywhere. I've seen a lot of polls that show that that Republicans and conservatives want that too. Even in Florida, where it's like the $15 an hour thing. If you watch the media, everyone's against it. It's socialist. It ruins everything. But yet in Florida, a red state, they passed $15 an hour. They raised the minimum wage. So I think if you,
it's easier for states to do those kinds of policies. Just way easier to do it at the state level than at the federal level. That's just
and I think that's kind of the template that a lot of people should use. I think the same thing can be done with healthcare, even though it's hard to do without federal funding. There are states that are starting to do different versions of free public healthcare, and I hope that gains momentum and builds across the country, because I do think that's really where you got to do things. Is you got to build it on the state and local level, and then it catches on and it spreads like wildfire.
Would you agree that the electorate shifts left, right? Would you agree that the political pendulum is a real thing? That an electorate 1 year can be wildly different from an electorate 4 years prior?
I think you have two major bases and sides that are pretty much locked in, and then you have a big chunk of independents that swing back and forth. Yep. Yes, and those are the ones that decide elections for sure.
Yeah, my contention is that the pendulum is real, and so certain considerations or certain policy proposals are going to be more popular in 1 year than they are in another. And my thing that gets me in a lot of trouble with the lefties that like to criticize me is that I am not opposed to shifting somewhat with those wins. I do, however, think that there should be some things that we shouldn't really compromise on. So like the trans issue, I think is one thing where we need to plant our flag. I mean, this is an incredibly marginalized people, part of the population. They're super vulnerable to addiction, abuse, self-harm. This is like a crisis in my mind. And so there's a certain moral principle on particular issues that I think Democrats should be very consistent on those issues.
So did you criticize Biden and Kamala for not really planting their flag as good as they could have on that?
That is crazy, bro. We did not have, by far, Joe Biden was the most pro-trans president fucking ever, by far. Far. He sent DOJ attorneys into red states all over the country who were passing bills discriminating against trans people. His administration took substantial actions.
I didn't know anything. I don't think it was super public, but
it was definitely public.
That's great.
It all happened in the public.
I don't think it was part of the messaging in the campaign so much, though.
Well, I mean, what do you think is more important? What somebody says on a campaign and versus what they actually do? There's no question in my mind. I don't know how anybody with a straight face. I mean, we shouldn't even restrict this to national politics. There's no question that blue states governed by Democrats are way better when it comes to civil rights for trans people. They're not even in the same universe, these two parties. So when I hear you say or sort of intimate that Democrats are just as bad as Republicans on trans issues.
No, I did not say anything. That's putting words in my mouth. I did not say that.
Maybe I'm being unfair.
They didn't plant their flag. It was not part of the campaign. I don't remember Kamala or Biden ever talking about trans people in their campaign. You have to be able to say what you believe. I'm glad they did stuff, but the country needs to know they did that stuff, and they have to message that in their campaign. There was obviously a decision made not to make that part of their messaging in their campaign.
Yeah, why do you
I think that was a mistake.
Well, why do you think that was?
Because they're trying to placate to conservatives. They were trying to go right.
Not just conservatives. Not just conservatives. Not just conservatives.
It's like a conservative viewpoint to be anti-trans. So I don't know.
We're talking about like we're like talking about like one specific thing here. We're talking about like the trans sports issue, and that one gets a little murky because like even like I think like 60% of Democrats. I mean, there's no question that the libs of TikTokification of the country happened in the last like 4 years. And so we've seen people shift away from, even Democratic voters shift away from support for like allowing trans girls to compete in sports with cis girls, for example. There's concerns about like how young we should allow medical interventions like hormones or puberty blockers or actual surgery. Just because Kamala may have strategically avoided the question, I don't think that means that we should just ignore the fact that Joe Biden was just objectively the most pro-trans president we've ever had, and that she would have been more than adequate.
Ignoring, it's a matter of messaging because I didn't even know about it.
So you're saying that? Hold on, wait. So I
can tell you, a lot of people don't know about it.
So you're saying that you think Kamala would have done better in the election if she would have ran around and made like the trans issue like a central part of her platform?
I didn't say that. Why do you got to run from one extreme?
You were just complaining that she didn't talk about it enough.
Yeah, so just talk about it. Just bring it up. I didn't say it needs to be the number one issue. Why do you need to argue my point like it's this extreme point? I've said they didn't talk about it at all.
But you're not.
You don't think that's the problem?
No, I don't. Not if you want to win elections. No.
So it doesn't think it was. They lost the election. Hello.
But you seem to be making the point that they would have done better if they went out there and like made trans issues like one of the main talking points of the campaign.
No, I didn't say one of the main talking points.
You're saying that they didn't talk about it enough. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And they would have. Okay. Do you think Kamala would have done better if she talked about it more?
Yes.
Okay, then what the fuck are you arguing with me about?
I didn't say it should be the number one issue. That's just.
But you're saying she should have talked about it more in a climate where like support for trans people has gone down like fucking collectively like 20 points in the last 4 years. So yes, I would like yes, in Democratic voters as well. Yes. So yes, I would like a Democratic candidate to strategically avoid certain topics. And then when they get elected, I know they're going to be way better on that topic than the Republican. That's what I mean by that.
I just think that you need to stand up for what you believe in, and you need to ride on that message. And I think they would have.
No, so do I. But I mean, listen, so do I. But I also acknowledge that like political strategy, you need to be like savvy at times, and strategically avoid certain topics.
They lost the election, and you're talking about it like it's a winning strategy when they lost. That just doesn't make sense. There's obviously things they should have done differently. And that's one of the things.
But you're not making you're not making to me a compelling argument that she would have done better if she went out there and like, so what can I get like specifics? Like, what do you think specifically she should have said with respect to trans people?
Just very simply, it doesn't even have to be a lot. Just saying we stand up for trans rights, trans people, and we're not going to interfere in trans sports. We're going to let the organizations and the scientists and the people that are qualified to deal with those situations, we're going to let those people handle it. And I just didn't see that. I think she avoided the messaging talking about trans people for the most part. I don't think it's the biggest thing that they needed to change. I don't think it's the biggest reason for their failure. I think the biggest reason for their failure was capitulating to Cheney, and the moderate right, because those people are not popular with anybody. Everyone associates the Cheneys with war crimes and the war in Iraq. Why would you hitch yourself to those people? It just doesn't make sense.
Why do you think she did it?
Because her advisors were telling her, hey, look, these lefties, these socialists, they're nuts. We need to go more to the right. That's where everybody's at. That's where the country's at. And I think they were wrong. I think they were wrong.
You think they were wrong that the country shifted to the right in the last 4 years?
Eligible bachelor, $1 million boat that's wider than what's spilling down your throat. The phantom, exterior like fish eggs, the interior like suicide roof.